What's going on, everybody? Jolt here from the Token Minorities, and I am back with my conclusion video here for Season 3 of the GBA D-League. I promised this at the end of my upload last weekend against Randy in the D-League semifinals. Make sure to go check that out if you haven't already. I'll just link it in the description below. As spoiler alert, I guess if you haven't already seen that, we did lose that game against Randy, and Randy then advanced to the finals to face against 6-foot Hacks Leo, and that game will be coming out tomorrow, so make sure to check that out as well on both Randy and 6-foot Hacks' channels. So like I said, this is going to be a more of a conclusion video for the season. I wanted to talk a little bit about my thoughts on Mega Kangaskhan. I promised I'd do that, as I think after using it for a full season, I have a pretty good idea of my opinion on it as a Pokemon in the format, and give a few thank yous to some of the people who helped me out throughout the season, and then we'll be out of here. So it'll be a relatively quick video, but yeah, we're going to go ahead and jump into this. I guess I apologize for the lack of pretty graphics on this video. Instead, you get to look at my pretty face, so I think that's a fair trade-off in my opinion. But let's just go ahead and talk a little bit about Mega Kangaskhan. So going into the D-League season, once I drafted Mega Kangaskhan, people were just baffled that I got it in round 2 of the draft, especially when it was a Pokemon that was, you know, freshly unbanned by the GBA / D-League. They've never allowed Mega Kangaskhan before at all, as far as I'm aware, and they allowed it here in the D-League to test it without Seismic Toss as an option in its move pool. And let me say, if Mega Kangaskhan had Seismic Toss, my opinion on it would change drastically, because Seismic Toss on Mega Kangaskhan hits twice. Regardless of the fact that one of the hits would be from Baby Kang, it would still do the full amount of damage as if both were coming from the Big Kang. So with Seismic Toss, yes, Mega Kangaskhan is broken, in my opinion, has no place in draft format, but Mega Kangaskhan without Seismic Toss, I'm going to say, is perfectly fine in draft format. Okay, you probably already made that opinion for yourselves if you watched me throughout the season, just because you saw Mega Kangaskhan is not able to easily get kills for itself because of that little annoying item called Rocky Helmet. Okay, you don't even have to have a pure counter, like a natural counter to Mega Kangaskhan like a Fat Ghost type, because in format you can just slap on a Rocky Helmet and essentially neutralize Mega Kangaskhan as a threat for the entire game. Sure, Kang can still do a lot of damage, but it's very rare for Mega Kangaskhan to be able to get more than 1 kill per game, and that's really the key point that I want to make about Mega Kangaskhan, and as far as my argument as to why it's not broken in format, and honestly, in my opinion, should be allowed in every single league as long as it doesn't have Seismic Toss, and that's because it's not easily able to get more than 1 kill per game. The only game, I think singular, that Mega Kangaskhan really was able to shine was against the Don Fanatic, and that's because he did not bring a Rocky Helmet. And that was the huge difference maker. No Rocky Helmet, Mega Kangaskhan goes nuts. But if an opponent brings a Rocky Helmet, and the team that I'm facing is, in general, slower than Mega Kangaskhan, then it's going to have a very hard time. But that brings up another key point about Mega Kang, where if a team is naturally faster than an offensive spread, then again, Kang is not going to have an easy time getting multiple kills, especially if an opponent has prepared adequately for Mega Kangaskhan by bringing a Rocky Helmet on something. So, Mega Kangaskhan, not broken, but it is a fantastic wall breaker, absolutely one of the best wall breakers I have ever used in the format. And that's because normal typing is not easy to switch into. The only resists being Ghost and being Steel, and I guess Rock as well. All of those are hit super effectively by coverage moves from Mega Kangaskhan. So Kang is able to bring coverage to beat its counters, or at least to hit its counters super effectively. The issue is it doesn't really matter what coverage Kang brings, because those switch-ins are going to be able to passively weaken Mega Kangaskhan through Rocky Helmet no matter what. So yes, Kang is solid. It's a very good mon in format. It is not broken, however, and it's still definitely worth drafting. But let's talk a little bit about where I think it should be drafted, because I did get it in round 2 of the D-League, and the way I look at a draft is I see round 1 picks as being mons that can be brought every single week, and I did bring Mega Kangaskhan every single game, but round 1 picks, in my eyes, should be able to, at any moment, get multiple kills per game. Okay, unless it's a defensive powerhouse, that's a different story. But if it is a Pokemon with offensive stats, Mega Kangaskhan does have offensive stats, then I feel that Pokemon should be able to be brought every single week and to get multiple kills every single week, given appropriate support and given an appropriate moveset. Mew, my round 1 pick, was able to do that whenever I needed it to. Anytime I called on Mew to be offensive, it did a fantastic job of it. You can look at week 1 against Leo, I brought a bulk up Mew set. It got like 3 kills in that game. You can look later in the season, I brought Scarfed Mew against Abe. It got multiple kills against Abe. And even in the last game of the regular season against Magic Activator, Mew picks up 5 kills after bringing an offensive Calm Mind Mew set. So Mew was the definition of a round 1 pick. Mega Kangaskhan is not. Okay, Mega Kangaskhan goes 1 kill for 1 death at best. I believe my final scorecard for Mega Kangaskhan throughout the season was like 5 kills and 6 deaths, or 4 kills and 5 deaths. So not even above 500 on the kill to death tally. And that's not saying Mega Kangaskhan is bad. All that is saying is that Mega Kangaskhan is not the Pokemon on your team that is going to be getting a bunch of kills in this metagame of draft format, in my opinion. Okay, it's a base 100 speed wall breaker, which means yes, it's going to be fast enough and strong enough to do a lot of damage to an opposing team, but it is not able to stick around long enough, in my eyes, to be able to get a ton of kills for a team. Now, I'm going to say that's not 100% going to be the case. If you build a team that has plenty of wall breakers on its own and is really built toward making Mega Kangaskhan get all of the kills, then maybe that would change. For example, if you have, like if a team has things like, maybe normal spam. Maybe a team has Megalop, Diggers, and/or Diggersby with Mega Kangaskhan, then those bunnies might be able, I guess you wouldn't have Megalop and Mega Kangaskhan. Let's say you have Diggersby. Diggersby plus Mega Kangaskhan. Diggersby might be able to break down those switch-ins to Mega Kang, maybe break down whatever that Rocky Helmet user is, and in that case, Mega Kangaskhan is seriously freed up, but it's very hard, in my opinion, to be able to entirely remove those Rocky Helmet users from the equation, because people will over-prep for Mega Kangaskhan. I think that in this meta of draft format is the biggest issue with Mega Kang, is that people will over-prep for it, despite the fact that it probably, I don't know, I don't want to say like it probably shouldn't be over-prepped for, because you saw what happened to Jack earlier in the season. When he didn't really prep for Mega Kangaskhan, he just lost Pokemon every turn. And, you know, but if you were to bring Rocky Helmets, then Mega Kangaskhan is kept well in check. So I guess that brings me to maybe the biggest benefit to having Mega Kang on your team, and that's that it does force that prep. People will over-prep for it, even if they don't really need to. They will, because they don't want to get bodied by Mega Kang, and that's respectable. It's a very, very threatening Pokemon. But if people over-prep for Mega Kangaskhan, you can use that to your advantage, and if you have teammates that can really abuse that, which in my case were things like the Scolipede and the Torn T, then, or even the Cobalion as well, then other members of the team can shine because Mega Kangaskhan is being over-prepped for. After a couple weeks into the season, really after I played Jack, so week 4 onward, as soon as Aster really just, you know, gave me the work, that was when I realized that Mega Kang is, yeah, I tried to draft her on Mega Kangaskhan, and honestly, I think I did a pretty good job, but it's not going to be the central focus of my team. It's not going to be the central focus of my draft, because there's so many threats on my draft that become freed up due to my opponents over-preparing for Mega Kangaskhan. So that's really the biggest benefit to drafting Mega Kang, and that's the sole reason, honestly, why I would recommend that you give Mega Kangaskhan a try, because it forces prep and makes the rest of your team better. Okay, it in itself is not great, but it is the ultimate team player. Compare him to something like Chris Paul. Okay, if you watch the NBA, Chris Paul makes all of his teammates better because he's very good at passing to an open man on the basketball court. And Mega Kangaskhan is, in essence, the same thing. It doesn't really use support moves too much outside of like Wish and Protect, but it frees up other members of your team to be able to do much better than they would otherwise, because an opponent has to prepare so heavily for the Mega Kangaskhan to ensure it is not able to get a ton of kills against him. So, yeah, so that's the general thoughts on Mega Kang. One other thing I do want to point out, support Mega Kangaskhan is a very tough set to use, like a Wish Protect Mega Kangaskhan. It's really fat, and like as a fat Pokemon, it's very good, okay? It's very fat, it can take hits from pretty much anything that's not fighting, and really well at that. You saw in the semifinals against Randy that it chewed up hits from 2 of the best special wall breakers in the game, in Hydreigon and Life Orb, Sheer Force, and Nidoking, and it wasn't even to it KO'd, okay? So Mega Kangaskhan, when EV'd to be defensive, is very fat. The issue is that it's kind of your typical Wish Passer in that regard, and that its recovery is from Wish Passing, which is fine, but that means it has to run Wish plus Protect to be able to reliably heal, and that leaves you with only 2 moves, and oftentimes if a team is drafted well enough, it'll be hard to have 2 moves that can hit an entire team for decent damage. And on top of that, at least on my draft specifically, I wanted to run Priority, sometimes 2 on that Kangaskhan, even with a Wish Protect set, and that really gives me even harder 2-move slot syndrome there with those 2 moves that I have the option of running. So yeah, it's very tough, I feel, to run an effective Wish Protect Mega Kangaskhan set, just because of how offensive the meta is, and just how many different typings of Pokemon are currently drafted in format. It's just very tough to build a solid Wish Protect Mega Kangaskhan set, but it's still a good set. I guess it's just hard to be like safe and have coverage for everything. I don't know, that was just an issue I was running into against Randy. He had a lot of really good defensive type synergy with the Mega Scizor, especially giving me a lot of trouble, at least in terms of my building. He never actually brought it, but it was definitely a major factor in my head when building my teams. But yeah, I guess just a little bit of reflection on the team itself that I drafted. I think the main thing that held my team back, not that I thought it was a bad team, I thought it was one of my favorite teams I've ever used, honestly, and I think the results really showed that. I loved building with it, and the 7-2 record in the regular season, #1 seed in the playoffs, like that goes to show how much I really enjoyed building with this team. The major flaw in the draft that I had this season was actually the priority option. So I had Mew, Mega Kangaskhan, Zoroark, and Nidoqueen that all had priority. 2 of those only had Sucker Punch, but Kang also has Fake Out. Mew also has Vacuum Wave, and I think also has Fake Out of its own. All 4 of those have Sucker Punch, but regardless, those aren't the best priority moves in the game. I like things like Ice Shard, I like Extreme Speed a lot. Like, those are some of the really good ones, even Mach Punch. Those would be priority moves that are really nice to have. And my team didn't have that. And the mons that did have priority moves were often wanting to do other things. And you know, that I feel like that was a major issue with my team because it was bulky offense. You saw in the finale of my season that I lost to a setup sweeper, granted a baton pass, but still I lost to a setup Meloetta because I wasn't able to outspeed it with anything in the end game because I didn't have priority on that team, which I would like to reiterate, priority is very important in team builds, and on this draft it was just very hard for me to fit that on my teams, and that's something that I think I would have liked to improve about this particular draft, and I think it would have made Mega Kangaskhan as a whole just look a lot better if it had a little bit more priority supporting it. But overall, the general strategy that I took for my drafting for this season I thought was nearly perfect to build around Mega Kangaskhan, if I'm being honest. And yeah, Mega Kangaskhan did not get a lot of kills, but it still was able to make the rest of my team look a lot better than it might have if they were not partnered with Mega Kangaskhan. Like, for example, Scolipede. Oh my gosh, I love that thing. Scolipede was able to benefit a lot from the Mega Kangaskhan effect of people having to prep so heavily for that. It really freed up Scolipede. It also kind of freed up Torrentee, I felt, a little bit. Even Cobalion, especially later in the season, was able to get freed up because of people prepping so heavily for Mega Kangaskhan. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to say here about Mega Kang. I hope my opinion has come across clearly so that you understand where I stand on Mega Kang. It's a very good mon. Please unban it from all of your leagues. Okay, it's not broken at all. All it takes is a Rocky Helmet to be able to effectively keep it in check, and but still draft it. It's still very good. Okay, it makes your team better, it makes the rest of your team better, even if it individually doesn't shine, and it can just fill so many roles. It can be brought to any matchup, it just won't always get the kills. Okay, so that's my thoughts on Mega Kangaskhan. Take them as you will. Definitely would recommend giving it a try here in the future. So going to wrap up here pretty soon, but I do want to give a few thanks to a bunch of guys who have helped me throughout the season, and I did get a lot of help. First and foremost, shout out to the front office. You guys have been super helpful all season. Especially later in the season, I got a lot of help from people like Zazo, from Halu especially. Halu was right there a lot at the end of the season. Tone was MVP of the front office. He was always giving mocks as well. Halu was right there giving mocks too. And let's see, I have a list of guys. We can look over to the left to make sure I don't miss anybody. Let's see, Magic, David was helpful as well throughout the season, especially with the drafting stage. Adam the Bee's Knees was also very helpful for the mocks later in the season. and LeJon as well was an MVP in the front office here later in the season with mock battles too. And then a bunch of other guys who were in there maybe didn't contribute as much for the D League, but you know who you are. Thank you very much, of course, for your help throughout the season. Excuse me. And shout out and thanks to Bill Standish for touching up my logo before the season started, to Asteroid Videos for the beautiful intro that you've seen throughout the season. That thing is my favorite intro I've ever had. Huge shout out to him. Go check out Asteroid. Seriously, he'll be linked down below. He's a very, very high quality content creator. Just trust my opinion. Go check him out. He is blowing up as a channel. Just go check him out if you haven't heard of Asteroid Videos before. Freezelander as well. Huge shout out to him for creating the layouts that you saw in my team builders as well as on my battle uploads. And shout out to Eon Blitz for who I believe made the thumbnails for the GBA D League this season. Thanks to Greg, Danicky Papacy, and Under the Radar for helping with recording my battles throughout the season after my capture card broke. Still trying to get that fixed. Hopefully we'll have that ready before I start my next league in Ultra Sun and Moon. And then thank you to Danicky, Uzi Gunner, and to the Don Fanatic for helping with genning throughout the season as well. And thanks to Tom Z, big thanks to Tom for putting this whole thing together. Honestly, he was probably the most important person in terms of putting this whole D League together. I know he put in a ton of efforts, and at least to me, Tom, it did not go unnoticed, so thank you very much for that, and also thank you to all of those who helped out on the D League selection committee when they were picking their coaches. And finally, thank you to all of the fellow coaches in the D League who really made this super fun. Okay, yeah, I run my own league. I have a lot of fun in the NPL, but like this experience in the D League might have been like one of the most fun experiences I've had on just on YouTube, period. And part of that is honestly you guys. Thank you so much for all the support throughout the season. It's been really cool to see the masses of comments and likes on the videos. It really means a lot to see all of you guys checking these videos out, and it seems like you really enjoy it too. And that does mean a lot. So thank you for sticking around, supporting throughout the season, and hopefully you guys will continue to stick around here for future seasons coming from me. So yeah, so just to reflect, just before we're done here, we're almost done, on some of my personal goals throughout the season. Goal number one, and I kind of went through this already at the end of my video last week, the semifinals. Goal number one was to finish the regular season #1 overall in the league. We did that. We were 7-2 plus 16 with the #1 seed in the playoffs. Goal number two was to show what I can do as a content creator and as a battler, and I feel like I have done that as well. I've put in probably more efforts on these videos for this season of the D League than I have on any videos in the past, and I hope it's come across that way. I personally feel like it has. And, you know, if you agree or disagree, please feel free to let me know in the comments, and I'm happy to learn and improve if you see ways that you think I can improve as a content creator. That's always something I'm looking for. And goal number three is inconclusive at this point, but goal number three is to make the GBA majors. And we will see what happens with that. I don't know when they're going to pick their coaches. I can only assume they'll take some out of the D League, at least one, maybe multiple, and we will see who they decide to go with there. So crossing my fingers on that, and I hope you guys are as well, because that would be a pretty cool opportunity. So those are my three major goals. Goal number one, and goal number two, check. Goal number three, we'll see. But regardless of what happens at goal number three, very happy with how this entire season went down. So just to wrap this up, one final announcement. This will be the end of the original Toronto Star Raptors franchise. Toronto Star Raptors are retiring from draft format. The original Toronto Star Raptors are, but we might be back next generation with a little bit more draft content in Ultra Sun and Moon, so be on the lookout for that. But in terms of the original Toronto Star Raptors, it's done. Okay, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But that about wraps this up. Thanks for watching, guys, and thanks again for all the support throughout the season. It's been really cool to see, and I hope you guys will stick around and subscribe for future Draft League content, as the Token Minorities will not be done with Draft League with the draft league format for a while. Don't worry on that, but the Toronto Star Raptors retire here. So have a good one, guys. Later.